Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and my guest today is Emma Paris. Emma is 13 years old. She's lived with her family in the area for about 10 years. She's homeschooled, and she is a writer, and she is a poet, and she's recently published her first volume of poetry called Naming the Forest. Welcome, Emma.
Hi.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Emma, we will get into all of the various things that you do, but you actually were born in Philadelphia, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and spent how many years there?
Probably around 3 before we moved to Brattleboro.
Yeah. Do you have any memory of those early years?
Not a lot, actually. I can remember my brother being born and vague streets, parks maybe,
Yeah.
but I definitely recognize Vermont more as home than...
Yes. Yeah. So you started off with winters
Yeah.
in Vermont, right? You have a brother and a sister?
Yes.
Yeah. What are the ages?
My brother is 10 and then my sister is 5.
Uh-huh. And you're all homeschooled?
Yes.
Yes. When I say you're all homeschooled, as you said to me, we spoke earlier, and you said, you know, it's sort of a flow into learning, that
Yes.
you never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little?
Well, I guess we never really started learning. We were always learning, like from our first steps to from looking at books when we were young to learning to read, which my brother is learning to read right now, and my sister loves looking at books, and I like looking at books. We're all readers at different levels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you read together?
Sometimes my mom reads to my brother and sister a lot. Sometimes I join in and look at books with them.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
sometimes I read to them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That must be nice for them.
Yeah.
Do you do audio books ever?
I do. Not as much as reading. I find it easier to read when I'm looking at a book than to listen to it, because it gives me room to focus on other things so I get distracted.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, I've asked a couple of younger people on the show, some older people too, but mostly, you know, kids who are still in school in one kind or another, how they understand best or how they learn best. And it's very different from person to person. And audio, it took me personally a while. I had to really train myself to listen to audiobooks, because you're right, you can be very distracted very quickly. But you get a good reader, and it makes for a fabulous story. So you and your family are part of a sort of a larger community of homeschoolers, is that right?
Every Monday, a large pool of homeschoolers all get together in the Putney Meeting House. And we all learn together. There are different classes for different age groups, and we have this whole setup, time, lunch, recess, and it's just a bunch of kids all together. Some kids don't even take classes, they just play with other kids, and I feel like we still consider that learning.
How many kids are there, do you know?
I'd say there's around 50, maybe 60.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot. That's a lot. Some, of course, are families, but they're still
Yeah.
individual kids. And are you divided up in any kind of way?
Yes. Infants to around 5 or 6-year-olds are called littles, and then that until around 10 or 11 are called middles, and then 12 and up are olders. They're different age slots, and you get different classes. But sometimes there will be all age classes, so that's when all the kids get together and cook, or I don't know. Sometimes there's a drama class or something. Yeah.
So you cover a lot of ground together.
Yes.
Yes. And that is just Mondays when you're all together like that?
Yeah. I have different classes on different days, but that's when I'm with lots of people.
Before I asked you questions about curriculum, you know, and if
Yeah.
you folks follow a curriculum or how that works, what you're going to study.
Well, homeschooling is different for every family, but our family personally doesn't follow a curriculum. Sometimes we will utilize one. We've used Oak Meadow before in past years, but we usually take learning as it comes.
And what do you mean by that? Can you expand on that a little bit?
I guess our point of view on learning is when a child feels ready to learn, then we'll let them learn. Sometimes they'll be teaching themselves, sometimes they'll have someone teach them, but I think that the most valuable learning you can get is when you're really interested in a subject or area.
So for you, a lot of it was reading. And when did writing come in?
Well, I've always loved words and reading and writing from like my early days, but when I really started writing, I was 11. I had appendicitis in 2017, and shortly after, I began writing poetry, and I've been writing ever since.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think it was the appendicitis or just being laid up?
Partly, I think it was a lot of the hospital experience. Maybe, I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, because that was probably a new experience for you, being in a hospital.
Yeah, my brother's been in hospitals like many times. He's the risk taker in our family. And I've been like in a hospital like beside him, but I've never been to a hospital like that for myself.
So you have no time periods, you have no grades, you have no testing.
Nope.
No. And you also have nothing to compare that to, right? Yeah. You know, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking a lot about homeschooling after I saw you in schooling in general. And I think that it brings up so many different ideas for people. And the fact that you know you don't have grading, you're not testing out. I was thinking about your stress level. You know, where do you feel stress?
Stress is kind of complicated for me, actually. I felt stressed before the climate strike in Brattleboro. I read one of my poems on September 20th. But I don't really have lots of stress education-wise. Sometimes I may feel stressed about homework, but I don't really feel stressed about grades or tests. I think that they do put a lot of pressure on students and youth, and I think that kids would learn better if they didn't have that level of, I need to get this right.
Right.
If they just learned.
Yes, and I think that there's so many studies going on and so many people looking at stress levels in children now, and where that comes from, and being overscheduled or stress at school because of testing and things like that. So it's interesting. It was a question I had for you. Certainly you have structures. And what kind of structures work best for you?
Well, we pretty much have unstructured days. I like to organize my own day. Like, I'll have my own free time, and I'll have time for class, and I'll have time for homework. I like being organized. I like knowing what to expect in a day. But we're not very strict on time or anything like that.
And so when you say class and homework, can you describe those two things a little bit more?
Well, I might go to class on Monday, and I'd have my book club. And there we read a book for a week probably, and then we come back the next week and we discuss it. And we'll sometimes have homework to do a project around that book or areas that are like that book.
There will be an adult who kind of gives you like
monitors,
monitors, and they give you ideas and help you sort of flesh things out about how to explore.
Yeah.
So the discussions that take place are in you're in the olders now, right? And so there's a group of you who are reading the same book, and you'll talk about that. And then will that go into other areas besides the book itself, like say history or science?
It's actually a book club / current events class. So on the days that we're not reviewing a book, we're looking at current events. We use a magazine, the Upfront magazine, for teens, which is really helpful. I think we all like it.
So you're studying current events at the same time, and so do you kind of roll it into other classes that you're taking?
I think they're all pretty separate. home we might do cross-learning, I guess. Like,
And that's what it's
Yeah.
called when you're doing different subjects, cross-learning. Yeah.
I don't know, I just sort of made that word up.
It's
on the
good.
spot, but
It's good. You can put that into your curriculum. Has there been a time when you felt like you didn't understand something or you needed to know more about something in particular? And how did you voice that, and what happens with something like that?
that happens a lot. We all have these times where we don't know what this word is, or we don't know how to say that or anything. But I don't know, I usually just go to my parents and say, so how does this work? And they'll tell me, or they'll give me information on how to get more information.
I think that's really interesting that, you know, to not feel stressed or awkward about asking questions, about asking about things that you don't know about. Yeah, that must be really kind of a lovely thing.
Yeah, I feel really lucky that I'm being raised this way. I know that lots of kids don't get this opportunity, so I feel really grateful that, like, if my parents, like, I don't know, if I felt like I didn't want to homeschool anymore and I wanted to go to school, I know that my parents would let me. But I know that there are kids, like, in school who don't have that option to homeschool or go to a different school. So I just feel really lucky and grateful.
I would think a certain clarity would come in knowing what you're interested in and being able to pursue it.
Yeah, I guess there is. I've never really felt anything else, though. I've never gone to school, so I guess I don't have a full understanding of what that would be like or the responsibilities that would come with that. But I do think that there is this enlightenment, like, with knowing what to do with yourself.
Yes. You're kind of, I would think, self-evaluating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that grew for you as you've gotten older?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-awareness certainly would, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel very present in my body. Like, just like when I'm getting sick, I know when it's coming. Like, I feel like I'm very in tune with my body. And I think part of that is not being stressed out about my social life, which is nice. I mean, I do get stressed out, but not as often, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do sports, or do you any kind of body things?
Yeah, I do. Well, not exactly sports. I like swimming a lot. And I'm really fast. I like running. And sometimes I'll kick around a ball with my brother or something.
Yeah.
But I don't really play any sports, I guess. I mean, I like being active. I do yoga, but I'm not competitive, I guess, in that area.
Also, you do some outside classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a wilderness class that I do every other Wednesday, and we do lots of herbal, making medicines, but we also do, like, wilderness skills, like making fires and how to find edible plants in the wilderness.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Any music or art?
Yeah, my mom is an artist, so we do tons of art at our house all the time.
So
We
it's
we don't have a particular class for art because it's such a big part of our lives already.
Yeah.
But I do play piano, and that's nice.
And you take classes outside of the home for
Yes.
piano? Let's talk a little bit about your writing. You said that you started pretty early. And can you talk about that feeling that you get when you write or need to write?
I almost see it as like this little urgent creature tugging at my sleeve. Like, it's this idea that I need to get down, that I need to write, and so I do. And I write a lot. I write at least once a day, I'd say. And I've been published, and it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
I think that if words suit you, you can't resist the calling.
So you feel pulled in that direction every day.
Yeah.
That's part of your daily life.
Yes.
Do you need special space or anything to do it in?
I prefer writing in a quiet environment by myself.
Yeah.
But I'd say that I could write anywhere if I really needed to. Like there are these sometimes in the car where I'm like, Mom, I need a pen. And sometimes it'll work. Sometimes, I'll just have to wait.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And does it feel like a discipline to you?
no. I think it's more of a freedom.
So let's hear a little bit about the book that you published.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
I've actually been working on this book for a really long time. I started it only a few months after I started writing, and it's taken a long time to bring into the world, but it's here now. And all the poems have human names. I'm not sure where that came from, but it popped out of my head. So, and the names have nothing to do with people that have those names or even the names themselves. It's like I wrote a poem and then I drew a name out of the hat, and that's the name the poem would have.
Really?
Yeah.
And so it's called Naming the Forest.
Yes.
Could you read a poem for us?
Yeah. This is one of the poems from my book, Naming the Forest. Xenia. If you wish to see the Statue of Liberty, go to page 904. If you wish to find your long-lost son, go to page 411. If you wish to fall in love, go to page 17. If you wish to be rich, go to page 600. If you wish to get a car, go to page 48. If you wish to write a letter, go to page 174. If you wish to get a pony, go to page 90. If you wish to hug a tree, go to page 72. If you wish to acquire third eyesight, go to page 11. If you wish to live in the country, go to page 28. If you live in a world where children are taken away from their families, go to page 2019.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So that was recent.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was one of my recent ones.
Yeah.
That lots of my poetry is kind of political. I find it a good way to channel my frustration and anger with some of the things that are happening right now into a creative way.
That sounds like a very healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emma, thank you for reading that. It's great to hear. And how many poems are in that book?
In this book, I think there are around 120.
That's a lot. That's a lot of poems.
I don't know. It doesn't seem as much. I'm already working on my next one right now.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Good. And do you have anyone who is mentoring you or who you go to talk about or to talk about structure of poems or anything like that?
Well, I do have my writing group at the Monday group, my homeschool group. There are a lot of other young writers there that I like writing with. And there is also an adult who monitors our progress and
Letting you kind of do your exploration and then helping you with questions and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, they're there, and I don't know, whatever we want to learn, they're there for it, and I feel really grateful for those parents that step in. It's really nice of them.
It must be an amazing support.
It is.
Yeah, for the things that
Yeah.
you're interested in. Yeah, and to be able to explore
Yeah.
them.
Also, this feeling that you don't have to go to your mom or dad for these questions. You could have all these other parents, like your best friend's mom.
Right.
Or
Right.
you could go to her and ask her something. It's not just these two people in your house.
Right. Well, and also you're getting different points of view, you know, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. Different people are going to have different explanations or different areas of interest as well. Yeah. So you also do a little theater.
Yeah.
Yes. Where do you do theater?
Main Street Arts in Saxon's River. That's the main theater company that I do stuff with.
Yes. And how did you get into theater?
I don't know, I've always loved playing make-believe when I was younger. Like, I'd use my brothers, like, I don't know, he's so go with the flow that I could basically say, now we're going to play princesses, and I would be the king and he would be the princess or something. Like, anything that I wanted.
That's pretty
Yeah.
great in a little brother.
Yeah, it was wonderful. He's so happy and go with the flow.
That's that's great.
Yeah.
How about your sister? Did she get involved too?
I was 8 when she was born, and I was still playing with stuffed animals and dolls and stuff like that, but I wasn't as vigorous, I guess. And by the time that she was actually old enough to play with us, I wasn't as into that stuff. And she's also a lot more stubborn than me. Or not me, my brother.
Yeah.
I'm pretty stubborn. She's kind of like me, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that stuff would have worked anyway.
Well, it's good that you had that
Yeah.
in-between person, right, to go with your ideas.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little more about theater and the kinds of what it's like for you to be on stage and in roles?
Well, when I first started performing and stuff like that, I got so nervous before a play, and I would freak out, and I would feel like I was going to throw up. And then once I was on stage, I'd be perfectly fine and in my role. And now, like, later on when I'm in a play, I still get, like, that nervous, like, what they call butterflies.
Yes.
But now it's more exciting, anticipation, I guess. And when I'm on the stage in my role, I still feel, like, that freedom. Because I love make-believe and being other things. Like, I love Halloween and stuff like that. Learning my lines is a little more difficult. Pretty much I just need time. I need a lot of time just reading through it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But after that, it's fine. Like, I've never really been caught up on my lines on stage or stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's nothing like being in a costume, right?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts, the getting dressed up.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And also changing your persona,
Yeah.
you know, I think is very attractive as well. So all of the things that you're doing as expressions give you a kind of liberation, it sounds
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
I really value my independence. Ever since I was young, like, I taught myself to read and stuff like that. So I really like teaching myself, but I also like being shown how to do things, like as a little push towards something.
Yeah. How about friends? Obviously you've got a built-in bunch of friends that you're in school with and seeing pretty regularly, right?
Yeah. I do say that, like, I have lots of friends that I kind of rely on, like, oh, I forgot what the homework was for book group. And they could just say, oh, yeah, it was this. So, like, having people that I can rely on besides adult figures. My best friend recently started going to the grammar school, and that was kind of hard, but we still get to see each other pretty regularly. So that's good.
And everybody's a little bit spread out,
Yeah.
right? So it's not quite as easy as just, running
Yeah,
into
and we
them.
also live, like, outside Putney, so I can't really walk anywhere. I can't
Right.
walk to my friend's house
Yeah.
when I want to.
Yeah. Pretty soon you're going to be driving, though, Emma.
Yeah.
That's not that long, right? 2 years?
Yeah.
Emma, this fall, you were involved with the climate strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary for me, I guess. I was one of the youth speakers in Brattleboro, and I was one of the last people, so I saw, like, all these great people get up there. I'm just like, oh, I wish I mentioned that, or something like that. And then when I got up there, it was like I was on autopilot or something. I was so scared, like, I could feel my legs trembling, but it was worth it. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. And it was a big crowd of people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how was it to be part of that?
It's this feeling I can't yet describe. It's such a freeing, like, even though we're there because of dire times, just being together is so invigorating.
And comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Emma, thank you so much. Actually, you know what? You have another poem. Could you read
I
that?
Sure.
That would be great before we say goodbye.
This was when I wrote summer 2017, I think. We didn't ask for music. The rustling of leaves looks like rain. The rustling of leaves sounds like birds chattering. Yet we didn't ask for music. All our dogs began to howl. And yet we didn't ask for music. The sky began to cry. The rustling of leaves looks like screams. The rustling of leaves sounds like the dogs howl. Yet we didn't ask for music. The waterfalls began to sing. And yet we didn't ask for music. All the people raised their voices. The rustling of leaves looks like people. The rustling of leaves sounds like voices. Yet we didn't ask for music. All the people raised their voices. And yet we didn't ask for music. Our world began to sing.
Nice.
Yeah. That
Nice.
one isn't in my book, but it'll be
in the
another
next one.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to hear your voice and hear what you're doing.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be up here.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for being with us today and for hearing Emma's stories and what she's up to. And definitely stay tuned for her next book of poetry, which will be coming out sometime in the near future, and also the poetry that she's already written. And I just wanted to take 1 minute to say that when I was preparing for having Emma on the show, I started thinking about our area and how many different kinds of learnings there are available here that have been here over many years. And so, you know, in addition to our public school system, in addition to people who are homeschooling, we've got Greenwood School, we've got Landmark College, we've got Montessori School, we've got Neighborhood Schoolhouse, we've got Grammar School, we've got SIT, Marlboro, and years ago we had Wyndham and Mark Hopkins. So all of these in some way are giving us, not only are they giving alternatives, but the diversity is so remarkable. And again, you know, for an area of this size, I think that we should really be grateful and really proud that all of this is going on. So thanks for tuning in today. Come back next week. We'll have yet another person on.